The recent End Bad Governance protests across Nigeria obviously highlighted the deep-seated frustration among the citizens regarding political leadership, soaring corruption, and social inequality. But with the return of calm and normalcy, what lessons may have been learned? We're now being joined to try and to offer possible answers to that poser and a lot more as we navigate this crucial moment in Nigeria's history by Libros Oshoma, a constitutional lawyer and public affairs analyst. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you for being here. Now, I think just today is August 10th, so we're 10 days into the protest. Can I just get a general overview first of what you think about this protest? Do you think it's met its objectives so far? The response from the government in way of the president addressing the nation, I think that was last week Sunday at 7 a.m., him coming out and giving that speech, and then the protesters saying they're not going to stand down, we're going to continue protesting up until their demands are met. What's your general overview on that?
I don't want to look at it from what the protesters demand and where these demands meant. I want to look at it from a completely different perspective. Perspective of before now, you'll be chasing ministers for information to give you information. Mm-hmm. You'll be running around directors of orientation agency to talk to the press. You would want the president to address us on pressing issues. But as we speak now, they are talking. They are looking for who to talk to. That's enough. That's also, before now, there's this belief that Nigerians are docile. They are laid back. If you push them to the war, they will break the war. But now the government has seen that Nigerians are not as docile, that if you push them to the war, they can revolt. So that's the perspective I'm looking at it from, that now, I just hope that they will sustain this consistent engagement. And before, there's this continuous fixation at the center. The government now is saying, look at the states, look at the local government. These are steps that, because it is not a 100-meter dash, it's a marathon. And it's a continuous process. Consistent engagement will someday, if we continue to engage and interact, will liberate the mind and then maybe help us do the right thing. That's the part I want to look at it from. So if looking at it from that perspective, I would say the protest for me has succeeded. It has succeeded, has woken up some, sleeping giants in government. Before it was easy for, press releases to just do the magic. The government will issue a press release and then everybody goes to sleep. They'll tell you, we have spoken on this matter. But now they're looking for who to speak with. Apart from the minister visiting Arise, I can tell you maybe next week, the NOA DG will visit Arise again. And very soon...
He wants to be the minister, by the way.
He will come on his own. Apart from with the minister, he will still come. I can tell you that for free. Take it to the bank. So these people are now looking for how to engage. And in engaging, they are quick to tell you, look at the states, they're collecting so much. But we need to move away from all of that. Let's properly, position governance. And that's the only way we can avoid all of this. Because this is not the first time we are protesting this subsidy removal, SAP issues, hardship. We've consistently been... I read a letter issued by... the late Taiso Larin to parents as far back as 1981 complained about hardship and the price of oil, the price of garri and all of those things. So we've been on these things, consistently. And then with the advent of democracy, one would have expected that we'll kickstart the rebuilding of a new country. But unfortunately, it seems like, we're even getting worse. We're digging further down because the structure is defective. So we need to look at the structure. I listened to the chairman talk about local government. Yeah. There is, for example, the federal government does not have a business with sharing palliative. It's not everybody that needs rice. It's not everybody that needs beans.
Even if the money comes from the federal government?
The money shouldn't be coming from federal government. It should be coming from the state, from the local government to the states and then to the federal government. But this idea of now trying to point at the state is because the money comes from the federal government, and then they share. Let me give you an example. So to drive this point home, you have a party of 2,500 people, and you create one service point with 36 trays. Everybody is going to clog that service point because it will be difficult for those trays to go around at the same time. But if you have 36 serving points, everybody, even if you kill one cow, everybody will eat to their fill. But if you have one service point, kill 36 cows, you will hear that some people went home with one full cow and some coolers of food. It becomes very difficult for you to monitor. That's what is happening in Nigeria. Some people don't need rice, they need yam, they need plantain. You are sharing rice to everybody. And so there'll be greed, some persons will collect it. So why don't we find a way of ensuring that governance at the local level is effective? Once you have all problems local, poverty, lack of infrastructure, politics, everything is local. And now you're looking for a solution, you're starting the solution from the top. You need to also take the solution from the bottom. So that's why I said I like the fact that we are talking now. Some of us have been talking for 24 years. Now government wants to talk because there is a protest. And I just hope that we'll sustain that talk, that discussion, that conversation. Also, some persons have proposed a sovereign conference, a national conference again, and then let us look at our constitution. We don't need a conference. We've had one conference too many. We don't need a conference to look at the constitution. We can consistently, these discussions, this conversation that we're having, let's look at, you were once in government. Just imagine a president sit down and say today, let me have, an open conversation with Nigerians. Open the phone lines. I'll be on Arise, open the phone lines. Let's talk. You know the effects that will have on Nigerians to ventilate and also hear directly, don't prepare speech. And that will percolate down. You see, governors will also want to emulate, local government chairmen will want to do that. And then gradually begin to find a way. You hear people directly talk and not talk through your aides. Because once you're in government, like I always say it, I'm never afraid of those people in authority. It is the people around the corridor of powers that I'm scared of. Because once you are in government, you're isolated from the reality. Yeah. They only feed you with what you want to hear until you leave government. And that's why the day they want to give you an appointment, they say, oh, no, he has an independent mind. Once you have an independent mind, then it becomes a problem. So we need to have this conversation and properly structure, governance. Once we structure governance, we won't all have the same problem at the same time. And so you won't have a national call for a national protest.
All right. Two things from me. First will be to look at the map of protests in Nigeria and how this last protest, which is ending today with a 1 million man march, appears to have changed it. We have a whole section, a whole region of the country refusing to participate.
That's a protest in itself. That's a protest in itself.
You think so?
Yes, I know so. Not to just think. That's a protest in itself. It speaks volume, and we shouldn't just close our eyes to it, saying they are not participating. They are actually participating in the protest by saying we will sit at home. We won't go out on the street, and they have reasons for saying we want to sit at home. Sitting at home because we know we are to some of them that we are scapegoats. The moment we join in this, this form of protest, then we'll be used as scapegoats because we are traders already in Lagos. You see what's happening. So we want to protest in our own way. We want to sit at home. We don't want to be part of your protest. And that also, it's a big problem because indirectly, some persons are telling you we are not part of this entity called the area around the Niger. So there's need for that discussion. How do we ensure that we say, though tribe and tongue may differ, but we should stand in brotherhood? So that's a protest in itself. But unfortunately, in having the discussions, you hear government say, oh, we thank people from the southeast for not joining. They actually joined by saying, we don't want to protest this way, but we want to sit at home. Our own protest is sitting at home because there are issues. What are the issues? Some of them, a lot of them feels, look, today, the Nigeria of today, we do not have equal rights with some tribes. That you cannot gloss over. You can't gloss over it. Even though, for me, I think these major ethnic tribes in Nigeria, the moment one of them is out of government, they cry foul. Some of us who are minority inside minority inside minority, so we know what these challenges are. Somebody from my tribe cannot vie to be a governor in Edo State. So we're not even debating in order to go president of Nigeria. I'm from Anegbete in Afemai. So you look at, let's look at it. South-South is a minority in Nigeria. And then Edo is a minority inside South-South. Afemai is a minority inside Edo. And then Anegbete Uneme is a minority inside Afemai. So
a minority geopolitical zone once produced a president, so maybe you shouldn't lose hope.
By luck. and we all know what happened. We all know what happened. So when I look at this call for, you remember the Yorubas during Goodluck Jonathan's time, even though they frustrated the emergence of Mulikat as speaker, they cried for, if you look at the first to 5, no Yoruba person is there. And all of this. And I asked, Obasanjo's presidency, what good did he do to the average Otaman? Jonathan's presidency, did he create road to Otuoke? And we saw the Almajiris from, I've been to Katsina, I've been to Emir of Daura's palace. In fact, if you see the number of Almajiris around Katsina, the Emir of Katsina palace, you marvel. Buhari and Yaradua were from Katsina. Did he remove Almajiri from the street? So when we shout this thing, even though, yes, it gives you a sense of belonging and, an inclusive sense, but we should reason beyond this idea of everybody wants to go to Abuja, because that's where the food is shared, and that's why it is like that. So if we grow local governance, some people in Senate will actually want to be, councillors and local government chairmen. I was interviewed the director of protocol in Miami International Airport. He's a Nigerian, Desmond Alofohai. And he told me, he said, this airport is managed by the local county, equivalent of your local government in Nigeria. And it provides more than 1 million jobs. And out of every 3 out of 5 jobs in Miami actually comes from aviation. That's effective local government. That the port also, I attended a seminar between Nigerian Port Authority and the Miami Ports Authority. And while they were introducing members of Board of County Commissioners from the Miami ports, these are county commissioners, local government. We're having ministers, senators, and you could see the difference. And you have FAN authorities or Federal Airport Authority or Nigeria Airport Authority visiting, and they are welcomed by a local government chairman's representative, not even a chairman, by a county commissioner, a councillor. But when they come here, the minister will welcome there. They even visit the president. Will give, so that's how much we have, destroyed local governance in Nigeria. What stopped Apapa ports from being managed by the Apapa local government? And when they manage it, because everybody there will have a sense of belonging, they'll collectively protect it, and nobody will come and continually take from it and go away and allow it to destroy. But if you send somebody consistently from Abuja to come take, they also will steal from it because it belongs to nobody. And that's what is happening in Nigeria. And Nigeria seems to belong to nobody. So you have a lot of ungoverned portions here and there. And so once you grab that, your portion, you hold it strong. That's why you have militancy, you have banditry, even though they are all the same, but we've find a way to apportion names for them. You have fraud everywhere, but we've given it, very fantastic name, Yahoo. And it seems okay. I see parents praying for their kids to hammer. But it is fraud. They're defrauding people. Not just foreigners, but Nigerians. Somebody who has, labored to earn a living, you send him a message and say, a bank is from so-and-so bank, all we just need is for you to give us. And this is fraud. And then you have securities that are ineffective. Even though you have a lot of them also consistently giving their best. Recently, we're talking about demolishing police barracks nationally. Nobody's discussing that now. We have all fixated on protest. So all of the issues are many.
Let's focus on that. Police barracks.
Yes, police barracks.
Yes.
You say you want to demolish police barracks and, in place build new ones. Regenerate police barracks. How do you just sit down and regenerate the entire police barrack in Lagos, for example? The ones they demolished in Ikeja GRA for how long now? How well have they regenerated it? Why don't you start with one? And then from there you move to the second one, you move to the third one. That will show that truly you're ready to regenerate. But when you just come...
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you think that police barracks in and of themselves are good things? Because they're a vestige of colonialism and that police live separate away from the people they're policing. Do you think that police should live within society, or do you think that police barracks are a good thing?
That question is a hydra-headed question, and you won't get a yes or no for it.
Yes.
Because you need to look at the indices. The mistake we make here is we just copy without adapting to our peculiarity. Our peculiarity here is the fact that you have policemen who are poorly paid, no housing, even transfer allowance, leave allowance you never get. I can tell you that, do you know that the cost of the interest for a police station, average police station in Nigeria, monthly is 15,000 naira, and it never comes? So with that kind of peculiarity, you still say because it's a colonial thing, so you don't need housing for your police?
No, not about not needing housing.
So we need housing for our police.
Do you think our housing for our police should be entrenched in society? I'm saying this just especially in terms of, we're talking about local government. The state governors are agitating for state police. People feel as though their police are separate from the communities they serve.
If you take care of your police very well, you won't need to put them in barracks. But a situation where they are poorly paid, so you need a place to house them. And the reason for police barracking is this. A situation you need a battalion or a platoon of police to move at the same time. And you have them all scattered around Lagos. How are you going to gather them? But I've lived in the barracks, both police and army barrack. And so you address the platoon. Let's say in a Keja police barrack, you have platoon 4. And then you need to move them to Maiduguri to also reinforce the one there. So you have them all in one place. That was the idea for police barrack in Nigeria. But today, because also they are so poorly remunerated, we don't just look at that idea. You also need to look at how do you ensure that the man who is going to protect billions, that he even at least have, a belly full.
That's right.
But here, a man who's going to protect billions and protect millions, you hardly pay him salary. He also will steal from it. He doesn't have uniform. He buys uniform. He buys statement form. Sometimes we are even donating generators to police station. You donate funds to them. State governors are donating vehicles to police stations. So there's need for us to also look at the structure, because you cannot talk about effective local governance without talking about insecurity. You can't talk about food supply. You can't talk about curing hunger without talking about security. And that's why farmers can't even go to farm today. We're talking about the measures taken by the federal government are short-term measures. We can't sustain them. You can't just open your windows to importation and say we remove duties. You need to look for a way to produce locally. We have arable lands for rice, but how much of it are we producing? Is it self-sustaining? We have land for yams. We have land for cassava. Remember Obasanjo's cassava policy? At the end of the day, everybody went into cassava farming. There were no off-takers. But today, we don't even have enough. So you need security before you talk about farming, and then you talk about food supply, and then you talk about processing. We are not even discussing all of this. And that's why the moment you adjust prices, and the law of demand and supply, basic economic principles, the moment there is more amount for these few available ones, the prices are going to go up. And you don't even have that's why federal government have been reduced to a palliative government. Every day we're talking about sharing, rice, buying buses. That shouldn't be the job of a federal
government. Even this rice thing has been suspended now.
Exactly.
Because they can't trust the civil servants to get 40.
Because when it is not available, everybody wants to steal the one that they need and the one they don't even need, that they can never use. And so greed.
I'm
profiteering, and then because also there are no consequences for action. So greed becomes the order of the day. So, and the man who also is stealing will not have the moral standing to look at another person who is stealing. So it now becomes, Alibaba and the 40 thieves.
Well, let's talk about actionable strategies, because I mean you've honed in on not just immediate strategies but long-term strategies to be able to make Nigeria great again. One of the key demands of the protesters was for transparency and accountability in governance. In your view, what mechanisms can be put in place to ensure that political leaders are held accountable for their actions, and how can citizens be more involved in this process? Earlier today, Steve was talking about this, doers, not our politicians.
Do as I say and not as I do.
Exactly. Even Adesowa had shared a link earlier where she spoke about they had promised to give half of their salaries. I remember the National Assembly said they're going to give half of their salaries.
Let's first know the salary.
Exactly. House of Reps. And then eventually, by the time, it came out, So how do we, because we keep talking about it, but we're still not seeing any actionable plans towards it.
Transparency is a key. The key ingredients to accountability. How much is this salary? First, let's understand. And you can't.
The House of Reps has come out to say that their salary is about 600,000 naira.
It is not for them to come out. Let us have slips. Let us have slips, account details, and say, okay, this is what I got. This is what came. Because your salary, you know what? When you want to avoid taxes, Augustine knows this. When you want to avoid taxes, no, haven't been in government. When you want to avoid taxes, you reduce the salary, then you load all the allowances. Especially in our society where allowances are not taxed. So, dressing allowance, newspaper allowance, feeding allowance, furniture allowance, all kinds of allowance. So your salary can actually be 60,000, 600,000 a month, but the allowance will be 10 million. So, yet, you are not lying when you say your salary is 600,000. But let's know the allowance that you take home, because we know there are all kinds of allowances. So we need to be transparent. It also brings me back to this same issue of governance. How many of them can we actually monitor? Long-term measures. Short-term measure is, yes, we've cut down our salary. Let us know what the salaries and allowances are. And when you cut it down, where are they applying it into? Which sector are you applying these funds into? We need to monitor the sectors and actually see growth and development there. Today, where the world is diversifying into a knowledge-based economy, we are diversifying into a religious-based country, where prayers and miracles becomes the order of the day. Look at the Olympics. If you look at the first 5 or the table of medals, the first 7 countries, they are not praying countries. The countries that are praying, like Nigeria, are not on the medal table. So we need to de-emphasize, this laziness and religion. And that takes us back to the local, because I tell you, all problems are local. And this idea of we are reducing our salary, government need to cut costs, really. This, you have SA to the SA to the SA to the president. You have a minister, he has SA to the SA, he has PA to the SA, and all sorts. All of them drawing salaries from the same lean government. A situation where we don't produce vehicles, you say, because senators need to move around, and then you give them brand new vehicles with what the forest is saying, 160 million. That is part of the ostentatious lifestyle that we're talking about. So, and then people, you say you buy buses to ease transport. It's like an insult to the people when they hear these things. You're driving SUV. So if you are a 5-term senator, you have those 5 brand new in your garage with the kind of massive houses that they have. And at the end of the day, election comes, you share 5,000 naira to the people. And you expect that, okay, you've won election, you go back to Abuja and sit down and expect that they will not revote. So there's need for us to truly, properly, and then the citizens should see election not as a 100-meter dash, like I say. It's a marathon. So it took Tinubu almost 30 years to get to where he is. Even though consistently they say, no, he's not interested. But a lot of followers know that this man was gradually working his way through. So if you are defeated this election cycle, that's not the end of life. You go back, where did I sit down with your strategy team? Where did I miss it? Where did I get it wrong? And then you rework it. So that's the way the citizens can actually participate. Do we participate in local government election? We say it is not important because the governors use it as salary paying agencies for their cronies. So because they know you will not vote. But if people troop out to participate the way in local government election, the way they participate at the federal election, it will be difficult, even though they will still rig, but it will be difficult for them to rig it the way they do.
Liberals, we have like 5 minutes to go, but I'd like to bring you to one important subject area that you have, done a lot of things around, which is the oil and gas and the politics of subsidy, which was part of the demands of the protesters to say, return us to where we were so that we don't come collecting bags of rice once in 6 months and stuff, but return us to 185, 190 per litre. That is not going to happen. But then the refrain from this government seems to be that we needed to do away with subsidy because without it, the country will sink. But it looks to me like, except for people like you who are versed in the politics of subsidy, people think that we have always been paying the sort of amount that we claimed to have removed, forgetting that in 2011, we frog jumped from 400 billion that Yaradua left to 1.3 under Jonathan because of the elections, and then Buhari's time. What do you think? How can this logjam be resolved?
The 445,000 barrel per day for local refinery, there's need for us to audit
what's happening to it.
What's happening to it. That is the crude that is meant for local consumption. And that's actually the crude that is given to NNPC to refine and sell. That's where the subsidy comes in. And so with the rate of forex to naira, we have dollar to naira now, and the cost of landing, if you add all of the throughput charges, and NIMASA charges and all of those charges, the cost of landing, we are still paying subsidy. So let's not deceive ourselves. And what we need to do is to ensure that we refine this product locally. If you refine it locally, you don't need to pay freight charges, landing charges, and all of that. So what is the cost of refining it locally? It brings us back again to security and insecurity. How do we ensure that we even increase output? We built pipelines in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s. As I speak to you also, you have Russia building pipelines from Russia to Europe to supply gas. And they're not protecting it with and this and that. They're protecting it with technology. How come we are not able to protect our pipelines with technology to even increase our output? So when you increase your output, merely 1.2 million barrels a day, when you have Saudi Arabia producing about 9-point-something million barrels a day, and then we say we want money, or so when you put all of these things together, you continually pay subsidy, even if you say you have removed subsidy, because your cost of landing will always be higher. But when you produce locally, if you produce locally, give opportunity to everybody to, if you want to bring in. But definitely, at the end of all of them, we come back to the local production because it is cheaper. Nobody will buy that one that you are importing because the cost will be higher. That's why we always have this crisis. So what they used to do, they take that low one for local consumption. Yeah. They give it to their friends. They share it among their friends.
The crude.
So, yes, the crude. They share it among their friends. You become a poor man in the morning and a billionaire in the evening. No question asked. Then those ones take it out, refine it, and bring it back into Nigeria. All of the byproducts are gone. And then they tell you the cost of landing. And that's why NNPC will tell you on the recovery. Yeah. That when they bring it in, they will still have to pay money. So they change the name from subsidy to under recovery. And then you have consistent with pump in money into our refineries, and yet it is not working. The last time they used our RPG to flare the refinery and say, yes, it is going to work, and why the mechanical components are still where it is. So we need to consistently ask those questions. The conversation should be around, why are the refineries not working? Why are we all fixated on one? The Dangote one? The Dangote one. Why? What is happening? I can tell you, even if you refurbish Kaduna refinery today, the pipeline that takes crude from Kaduna from Niger Delta to Kaduna are all corroded. And in connivance, even the workers connive with those that are stealing the crude. When they want to pump, they will tell them, we are pumping tomorrow, please, position. Because when those thieves take theirs, the workers also will take theirs using tankers. They say, when you steal 1,000 barrel, they will tell the federal government that it was 3,000 barrels that was stolen.
stolen.
And then the IOCs also will tell you, since if you have stolen 4,000 barrels, the IOC will say, well, actually, you know, they'll remove 2,000 also and say, well, we didn't pump up to that. So it's a circle.
Yeah.
And we need to sit down, audit all of these transactions, and NNPC can do it.
The president is the minister of petroleum, but
Yeah, Minister of Petroleum is different from NNPC. NNPC can do it. It's a
Correct.
whole big discussions.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time, of course, and your analysis, as always,
My pleasure.
on The Morning Show. Libros Oshoma there.